state government, federal government, large companies, medium-sized enterprises, and the typical response that you get when you talk about the art of the possible, to turn around and say companies like Google and Amazon are going to this level, so this is what is possible. A lot of the pushback that you get is, well, we're not here to make money, we're government, so we don't need to do that. And it's this attitude of, because it's not about making money and being first to the market, they don't need to go down that direction of having DevOps and faster releases. And typically what they tend to focus on is more around that customer centricity, engagement with their employees, but they don't tend to focus on release of value. And that's where a lot of government departments trip over, because they see themselves as a monopoly where they don't need to compete with the rest of the market, when in actual fact, the way Agile's and having the Agile mindset dictates it is to say, you've got a whole community that you're serving. You need to unlock and release that value to them as fast as you can.
Perfect. All right. With that, I think we should go into next section. Daryl, you were saying something?
I was just going to say that I think it might be time to move on if we want to get through some of the courses.
Yes. So I'll take over from there. Thank you, Shakti. So leading safe, if we bring the implementation roadmap, is literally one of the starting ones. Shakti, do you mind clicking one more for me? Thank you. There you go. So we made it small on purpose so you would come and ask us questions after this. No, I'm being cheeky. Um, uh, you will see on the implementation roadmap that leading safe literally starts whenever you're starting with some sort of waterfall, ad hoc, agile, fragile, whatever you call it. You do need to send those leaders, those change agents on some sort of training. Now, yes, 2 days can feel a little overwhelming. 2 days can be, we don't have time for it. So you do have to figure out if you want to do a distilled safe for exec briefings, which Daryl and myself have done many, many times. Takes around 2 to 2.5 hours. Or if you do have some friendlies, you can do leading safe. Now, I have run leading safe for 232 people last year, which started just from program managers and program directors. After we did 2 classes, suddenly the architects came snooping and they were like, can we attend? Like, sure. And then next we know the GM of a certain business unit, I shall not name, was interested. And then they wanted a certain classes just for their unit. So it just started happening with the ripple effect. What it does give them is, Shakti, do you mind going one more? It is a 2-day foundational level, and it teaches you, Shakti, if you go one more, thank you. You will gain a lot of knowledge about SAFe, but what it really teases out is your knowledge about underlying principles, things like shift, things like cost of delay, lots and lots of product development principles. What should you be thinking of in terms of flow, prioritization, which work item you want to pick up first? So it really makes those leaders think if they're making the best ROI decisions. It also brings up the flavors of mindset. It also talks about, anybody heard of a term called HIPPO? Thumbs up. Yeah. HIPPO stands for highest paid person in the office. I think we call it something else as well. But yeah, a lot of those natures will come in the class. You will see the dynamics. It also forces you to work on something known as PI planning, which is program increment planning. So leading safe is designed to give you a flavor of that exercise, which challenges people's theory and mindset quite a bit, because they're all used to doing things in a certain way, and suddenly there's a lot of gray, suddenly there's a lot of planning to be done, a lot of unknowns that they have to face, which they're not comfortable with. So this course definitely challenges their existing notion. If this is their first time that they're going on an agile journey, they will have quite a lot of aha moments and quite a lot of, oh my god, we didn't figure this out first, kind of a thing. So definitely recommended for leaders, definitely recommended for, Shakti, do you mind going one more? I think it tells you, there you go. And I have done this with a lot of people, specifically people who have been in position to make decisions. It brings a lot of value for them. The next one that I love to do is Safe DevOps. So I've been working in or have worked in Safe DevOps or DevOps environment in 2012. That was a true DevOps. Now, what happens is, as soon as I say DevOps, a lot of people tell me that it is all about CI/CD, it's all about tooling, it's Jenkins, and it is, everything going automated and 20 different tools in the market, right? All right, that will make you go faster, but that will not bring the agile element in it. That will not bring the culture of working together. When we say DevOps, it is bringing the development people who develop and deliver the change with the people who maintain and curate the change together. That's one team. And that is what happens when you go to this particular course. It challenges your definition of DevOps. People come out, I've seen personally a couple of infrastructure and cloud guys who were heads off, and they were like, that is not the definition of DevOps that we were told. Sorry, this is more in the context of how do you set a culture of DevOps. So this one is one of my favorite, and my ultimate one is the next one, which Shakti is going to. It's architecture because I have an architecture background. I don't know if I ever told you guys that. Um, in any organization that I've gone, architects are the people who are not to be bothered, not to be disturbed, not to be brought on the journey. They're the people who we will need when we need a design, we will need when we think of solution and everything, after effect. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. If you're thinking of a business case, if you're thinking of an idea, if you're thinking of a big product to be developed, you should be engaging the architects upfront. Now, which level of architect, that this course defines, because you do have enterprise architects, you do have solution level architects, you do have solution level designers, and you also have a different level of service architects, which are servicing at a program level. So you could have data architects, you could have application architects, you could have mix of architects over there. This course goes deep into how do you want to engage them, and how do you want the organization to be successful with the change, with the collaboration between architects and the product managers. This is a very good one. Unfortunately, it's not very popular because from what I see, people don't see as architects as needed to be trained upfront, and hence they keep sending them on leading safe, but there's a specialized role-based course available. Daryl, why do I feel like you want to say something? I'm reading your mind.
No, sorry, I was just getting ready to do the next slide. That's
Oh,
all.
okay. All good, all good. I'll let you speak from here.
Dear, I was obviously looking far too attentive. So just quickly telling you a little bit, I'm conscious of time, so I will be brief. LPM or Lean Portfolio Management is a really great course to show how SAFe enables a large organization to be able to define what its strategy is and then link that strategy through to execution so that they know that people are working on the right things. They're working on the things that will bring value to the customers, value to the organization, that they're working on the things that we're investing in. We don't want people working on things that aren't related to where we want to go. And then at the same time gives us visibility of how that work is going. Is it progressing well? Is it on track? Are we going to deliver the value? Gives us the ability to make really good quality, informed, stop, pivot, persevere type conversations. So Lean Portfolio Management enables that construct of how to link what we want to achieve, where we want to go with the work that we're doing, and then all the way back up to the visibility of that and the management and tracking and reporting and all of that. So really great for the people involved with either strategy or funding or tracking large pieces of work, approving work, or reporting on it, that sort of stuff. Next one, RTE or Release Train Engineer. So in SAFe, I mentioned before how a team of teams in SAFe is called a train, and the concept here is that you have a train engineer. So just like if you had a physical train, like a steam train, the engineer would be the one on the train who's tinkering with it, tightening that screw, letting off some steam here, keeping the train in tip-top running order by tinkering with it and making sure it's running well. So the idea is that the release train engineer does that same sort of function for the agile train. You know, it coaches the train, supports the train, tweaks the running of the train to keep it running in an optimal way. Steve's saying the RTE is the glue that holds it all together. Yes, that's it. The glue and all the other toolbox as well. You know, I won't start talking about chisels and hammers, screwdrivers. Anyway, so it's a servant leader role plus a coach role plus a delivery coordination, you know, release management role. It's a really big role. You know, anyone that's done RTE or even known anyone who's an RTE, you know what a big role it is. Some organizations I know, they split the RTE role into 2 or 3 other roles because it's just so much to take on. The RTE course is a really great course. It's a very advanced course to, you know, train people to do this role. Really important. I've got a couple of comments there, which are, oh, it's just Steve and Joe T talking.
Sorry, didn't mean to distract you. As an RT, I paid a lot of bills, a lot of food bills, vendor bills, hotel bills, PI planning stuff. So definitely didn't feel like glue, felt like something else.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, I'll hand over to, I think, Darren.
Yep. Thank you, Daryl. So we have Safe Scrum Master, and I'm not sure where the component, there we go. So Safe Scrum Master. So your Scrum Masters are essentially your team facilitator. They're the ones that go in and ensure that they're the grease in the engine to make sure that the team is operating at optimum efficiency, that the impediments are being removed, that distractions are being deflected away from the team. And what's very interesting about the Safe Scrum Master course is that it's one thing that it was in, I remember in version 4, it's now changed a little bit more in version 5, where it used to focus on not necessarily what is a Scrum Master and what does it do, but how does a Scrum Master operate in SAFe, in that scaled environment. So how, as a Scrum Master, you get all the teams of your Agile Release Train aligned and working well together. And how do you take a team through PI planning? And it's, you know, it sounds simple, but trust me, I've been a Scrum Master for more than one team during PI planning. By the end of those 2 days, you need a good drink. It is a lot of effort. And then when you're dealing with a release train where you've got potentially over 100 people, you are doing a lot of running around coordinating with other teams and stakeholders. And so this particular course is really good. And if we go to the next one, we start to talk about Safe Advanced Scrum Master. And so essentially the question is, what is the difference between Safe Scrum Master and Safe Advanced Scrum Master? Well, if Safe Scrum Master is meant to tell you how you act as a Scrum Master within the large-scale safe environment, a Safe Advanced Scrum Master is there to teach you more tips and tricks that Safe has from other areas of Agile. So for instance, it goes deeper into Kanban, it goes deeper into DevOps and into extreme programming practices. And it basically says, right, we know that you're a Scrum Master. You understand what Scrum is about. We understand that you know now how Scrum works in a safe environment. Now let's upskill you so that you can facilitate the team even better. And so that's what Safe Scrum Master is all about. And you can see on the roadmap that this typically comes a bit later in the cycle, because once we've kicked off our Agile Release Train, the Scrum Masters are there to help facilitate the teams. How do we then facilitate the facilitators? And that's why we are, after we've got everything moving, we are continuing to upskill our Scrum Masters so that they can then continue to facilitate and upskill their teams. So if we go to the next slide, we've got Product Owner, Product Manager. And again, similar to Safe Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager does focus a bit more on how does it work in a safe environment. However, in the latest version, Safe version 5.0, they've actually taken a lot more of the business side of things and their customer centricity into it. And they want to make sure that as a product owner or a product manager, you have the skills to be able to explore and articulate what it is that the customer wants, and making sure that you're hitting on the nail on the head of those stories and those features and those epics to make sure that you are building the right product. And so just as you would train your Scrum Masters up front. You want to train your product owners up front to make sure that you have that dual co-leadership with the team of the safe Scrum Master, the safe product owner, for the team to be able to them to have that servant leadership to help the team achieve their goals throughout the program increments. If we go to the next slide, safer teams. And again, this is your foundation of the majority of the people in your Agile Release Train. This is where you take your business analyst, your change analyst, your developer, your tester, anyone who's going to be on your Agile team, and you take them through and you upskill them. And SAFE has a very interesting way of saying how you should train these people. And this is all at once. And you can literally, I've seen it, you've got 150 people in a room because you want everyone to be on board at the same amount of knowledge at the same amount of time, so they all operate together. Because these are your foot soldiers in an Agile release train. They're doing all the work, they're building the product increments, and it's important that they're all on the same page with how they're doing the work and how they're delivering the work, because you want them to be able to work well with each other within a team, but also as a team of teams. If you've got teams operating at different speeds, it's like driving a car where you've got one side of the car in third gear and the other side of the car in fourth gear. You're going to break your engine. So you want everyone on the same page so that they can get from A to B and deliver that good outcome. And with that, I think I'll hand back to Jyoti.
Thank you. Shakti, do you want to run down this?
By the way, before I go over there, I would like to first congratulate the fact that 4 experienced coaches had such a short time to deliver what they delivered, because they have experience to do the exact same thing for another day, right? So thanks a lot for condensing that. I know this was quite content heavy, but it was intended because there's so much knowledge. In fact, after I go through this, I will open the forum for questions, especially if you were to capitalize this time. It's experientially ask what's happening on the floor, because these are the ones who discover. Anyway, from incremental, as I was telling, that we came from the frame that we want to help guide people in the right way. And we have our Scrum Master training, which is happening just around the corner on 7th and 8th. We have a couple of more slots available for that. However, as Darren was saying, these are your leaders, servant leaders, who are going to embed that into the system. We also have SAFE for teams, because there have been some interest for teams who want to go down the SAFE journey. That's happening on the 14th and 15th. And I know that Jyoti's favorite DevOps practitioner, which is happening on the 21st and 22nd. We have stuff lined up in the December one with respect to Agilist and POPM. What we have done is, this is our email ID. If you have any interest, either with yourself or your teams who needs to do, feel free to mail us. And if you're going through, it can be early birds, as well as if you're going through certain situations where you want to get trained, but you need some support, we are more than happy to do that. So reach out to us. And with that, I would like to open up for questions. Again, unmute. Yeah. Awesome. Not sure it's a question or unmuted by mistake, but open to questions. But basically, we are there for you. Feel free to contact us. But open to Steve, Jyoti, Darren, and Gerald. Thanks a lot. And the time's back to you for questions.
I think, Shaq, there is a question from Jared. Do you want to take that? Jared, are you there?
Just good job, thank you. But banks and all that's all great, but organizations with a couple of hundred people with a good willingness to change, CEO and board buy-in, let's probably not overcook it, but I guess we're a little bit different. We've got a hardware component, hardware plus software component, so it's a challenge between the platforms that we create and then the software that we lay up on top of those platforms, which is really what the customers are buying. So I don't know if you've had any experience with those kind of companies. We're a consumer electronics, I guess, is probably the biggest similar kind of world.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I start talking about it, Steve, Darren, do you guys want to take a stab at it?
I would just say that sounds like a great environment.
Yeah.
I go work there. I mean, you only have to launch one train, maybe two at the most. So, you know, you could do your value stream mapping and, you know, demonstrate success really easily, really well. You know, I mean, sounds great. Hardware and software work really well, by the way. You do the architecture runway stuff from the architecture course to make sure your hardware is ready just in time in front of the software components, and you coordinate those all together. It works really well.
Exactly. I think the couple of teams or places that I've been involved in, one where we were trying to upgrade and build a server, which was all hardware. There was no software component to it. And then there was another, I think it was SRG from memory, Darren, boating, camping, fishing, and all of that stuff, which was purely retail. Again, they had no software component to it. It was just a retail factory. They just wanted to look at their, you know, wholesale orders that they do. The way you treat them is you make those sorry, something's wrong with my throat suddenly. hardware. You treat them as separate squads. You, if possible, if they're big enough, treat them as a separate train altogether. So like Daryl was mentioning, Shakti, do you mind going to that safe big picture? You can have multiple release trains in a solution. Now, in the value stream, if you treat it as a solution, hardware can be your separate train. Software and IT systems can be a separate train. If you have a vendor engagement, they should be treated as a separate train. So that's how you do it. If you're trying to, oh, here, thank you so much. So do you see where it says large solution? There is a solution train. So you treat it as a solution, but within that solution, you have a couple of different trains. One could be dedicated to hardware and one can be dedicated to your software. And that's how you treat them. Now, how do you work them together? The timelines, the cadences, that's the part that you'll have to work internally and see they are in sync.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, the way we're looking at structuring it is, you know, the hardware, but also the software platform, like the core OS and the core foundation layers on the software that we put on top, and then the products or the services and experiences go in a separate, you know, value streams around.
Absolutely. Because the one thing to remember is, and SAFe calls it architectural runway, when you have hardware involved, that train almost always will be at least one PI ahead of the software, if not more. Because you need that kind of stuff before your software starts landing on it.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. The other recommendation is integrate as often as you possibly can.
There you go.
All right, I got to jump off. I got to talk to the CEO about Agile.
All the best. Let us know how they take it, Jared.
No problem there. Thanks for the time.
Cheers.
No worries.
Thanks, everyone.
Any other questions?
Giselle had a question, didn't she?
Yeah, I do. I have a question. So in the environment that I work, it's half agile, I will say. We didn't have a Scrum Master. However, I'm running this sort of funny role. And they want me to help at the leadership level because they don't have like a framework to run all the things that they do. And there's a bit of a chaos in the delivery planning and all of that. So I was reading about SAFe and I saw how it's like a scale of the events and all of those things. And I wanted to know if, from that perspective, this type, like the training, for example, the Scrum Master training, will work to, I don't know, help me to help my organization, even though they are not SAFe, and I don't think they are going to, they don't have that in mind.
It absolutely can, because it covers of principles, and the principles are applicable even if you you know, using a different words or a different framework even. So principles over practices, essentially. If you understand the principles, then you can make changes to the practices and they'll still be in line with the principles, and you'll know what you're doing and why, and that the changes that you make will work. If people just go for practices without understanding the principles behind them, then they might make changes that aren't going to work, or they don't know why they're making the changes, etc. So the SAFe Scrum Master course would still help you, because it would teach you to understand those principles.
A lot of it's common sense. It's just understanding what support structure you need, what's going to support you to grow and move forward. And if the course helps, good. I mean, just keep experimenting. I mean, you can do some low cost experimentation yourself. There's so much there's so much information available on the website that you can actually start making some informed decisions as well.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions?
Any of the last questions before we kind of open it to the informal session where you can stay back and interact with the coaches and try to know the real story which is hidden behind the recording button. But yeah, any of the last questions?
I forgot we got